It is as though we are still on a plantation.
Anyone who thinks that slavery ended in the 1860s with the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation are grievously wrong. Slavery has been with us and continues to have its manifestations in a variety of ways.
Imagine you and your family living in this barn, forced to live like animals and with animals. No heat, no electricity, none of the things we commonly take for granted. This is the case of one family, held as slaves up until the 1960s. We found this barn at Grange Hall Road and MS Highway 568 near Vicksburg, Mississippi in July 2009. This is the true life story of former slave May Louise Miller.
You know, I came from a very poor family, and we was in slavery. We didn't have food, clothes, shoes. We really didn't have much of nothing. And the clothes we had was a cocoa sack. Each one of us had a cocoa sack with 3 holes cut in it, and that was your clothes. Your shirt, pants, and underclothes, or whatever you want to call it, dress. We had no shoes. We had the kill what we eat. We didn't have a stove. We really didn't even have a house. We lived laid on the grass, on the dirt. The hay was our bed, and we covered with the hay was our cover. We laid with snakes. We ate snakes. We ate the crickets. We ate the worms. We ate the birds. We ate the bird eggs. We ate the rabbits. We ate the frogs. We were just kind of like Tarzan. Whatever was there come in front of you, that was your meal, if you caught it. And that was our motto. It was more than me, but I don't call names. But if we caught a worm, each one of us took a bite of that worm. If we caught a cricket, although you think a cricket is dope, but we broke it into pieces that each one of us could have a piece of the cricket. If we caught a fish that unwashed on the bank side, whatever, when we bit it, everybody took a bite.
President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. By 1865, the 13th Amendment, abolishing slavery, had become constitutional law in most states. And in 1865, Lincoln became the first U.S. president to be assassinated. During Reconstruction, most southern states ratified the 13th Amendment. However, they also put in place a series of laws that severely restricted the rights of African Americans called the Black Codes. Mississippi was the first state to institute the Black Codes, and its legislators didn't ratify the 13th Amendment until March 16, 1995. Johnny Thomas is mayor of Glendora, Mississippi. Thomas also grew up in slavery.
Everybody else was in charge of you. That was a big part of me looking at how we had to go to the owners to get anything. They had their own plantation store. That's where we had to eat from. That's where my mom was always in debt. We never had anything, you know, growing up. That was tough time.
What were you telling me about this area?
Oh, well, I was just talking about this being a plantation type of community, and pretty much in the shape that it's in, because individuals hoped that it went back to the cotton field as such.
What do you mean by plantation type?
Well, we was created around plantations. This entire area here was pretty much farmers, and now they are pretty much mechanized and corporate farming. Therefore, leaving individuals here to fend for themselves and hopefully to keep the status quo. When I say status quo, keeping individuals without. It is their mission, it seems, that this community stay poor as it was in the past. I'm a part of the Swan Lake. The Swan Lake community was owned by the Floats. And the Floats own the plantation in Swan Lake as well as in Glendora.
In July of 2009, not only did we interview May Louise Miller, who was a former slave until the 1960s, but we uncovered a present-day plantation. We're concealing the identities of those living on this plantation to protect them from any repercussions.
If you had housing in the city, would you move? Where you would pay like $70 a month?
Well, as long as it's around where I stay at, yeah, I can do that.
You know, we couldn't get them to say anything about the owners on camera, but they explained to us off camera exactly what was going on, and they said to us if we were able to get them off of the plantation, that they would give us the full story on camera.
Human rights activist and writer Dick Gregory explains the mentality of present-day slavery.
And so you sit and you look at a mentality. And so when I looked at that film, I got to think about my mother.
They would bring my mother to the house. And when they bring my mother to the house, one of us would have to go with my mother, so the master said. And so this was the particular time that I had to go with my mom. So they raped my mom. And when it came to me, I was sitting there crying because, when you don't know what's going on, I was sitting up there crying in this. And so the lady said, they coming to me. So the master's wife said to him, and the other brothers or whoever they were, and she said, and they was sort of looking, and she said, oh no, honey, no. And she says, she's not even a heifer yet. I didn't learn what that word was till over in the 70s. And she said, she's not even a heifer yet. She's just a yearling. You can't. But they gagged my mouth, and they raped me just like they did my mama. And there I was laying in that pile of blood. A little bit of girl didn't know what to do. And his wife had to clean me up. But that never stopped. And I remember telling my mom, if you go tell that old nigger what happened here today, we's gonna kill everybody.
We took this issue of present-day slavery pinnage to Capitol Hill. We contacted members of Congress to get a reaction, but were not surprised when they said they would, but never set up a time to be interviewed. Radio talk show host George Wilson has been reporting from Capitol Hill for over 30 years. He's well known by every member of Congress and the Senate, but none of them would give him an interview on present-day slavery and or pinnage either, even though they promised they would.
We all had been led to believe that somehow we were past slavery and its vestiges and we were moving on to a better day. Well, seeing the footage that I saw and realizing that many of my brothers and sisters are living in not only abject poverty, but all the vestiges of slavery, it was saddening to say the least. And it really tells me that here on Capitol Hill, we have to have lawmakers talking about this very subject. This is not something that's going away anytime soon, and this matter needs to be addressed at the highest levels of the government.
Why do you think it haven't been addressed? Because as you saw, there are documents already at the Justice Department. What's going on?
Well, it would take some what the lawmakers like to call heat from the streets. And I think there has to be an outcry among people to say, look, this is still going on. I have relatives who are living this way, or I know of situations like this, and we have to have hearings here on Capitol Hill about it. So I think it starts out with lawmakers knowing. And I was looking at Glendora, Mississippi, and I'm almost certain that that's in Congressman Benny Thompson's district. Anytime you're talking about the Delta, you're talking about Benny Thompson. So when I see him today, I'm going to be sure to mention to him about what's happening in this district, ask him if he knows about it, and ask him if he intends to take the next step to see to it that we have congressional hearings about the condition that men, women, and children are currently existing under.
I don't blame it on them. Different people got different levels. And so when I sit and I looked, and then you go back to the 13th Amendment, see, most folks really didn't read that right, especially black folks. But when you read it, here's what that 13th Amendment should have read like. Neither slave or indentured servitude. See, most folks don't know that there were more white folks slaves in America than black folks.
Those white people on the plantation too?
They just called them indentured servitude. And they could buy their freedom every 7 years. Probably the greatest movement in the history of the planet was the Abolitionist Movement. You had white folks willing to die to liberate me. Willing to kill to liberate me. I mean, think about that movement, man. They're not fighting to liberate themselves or their family. They're not killing black folks. They're killing white folks. John Brown, him and his boys, his children. They said, oh, he crazy. He went up to Kansas and killed 13 white folks. No. Kansas was the first state that had death to the abolitionists. And so they hanged the first trial. And John Brown and his sons moved in there and killed 13 people, the judge and the 12 jurors. And it scared Kansas so bad, they rescinded that law the next week. The abolitionist movement, you see no movement till up in New England. One of the sad things of Frederick Douglass' life, he died broken-hearted because he wanted to be part of the abolitionary movement. And the abolitionists said, no, Negroes can be part of this movement because y'all too childlike. Huh? Some white folks willing to die for me? Kill other white folk for me? But in their mindset, I'm too childlike. So you can't be part of this? You couldn't be part of it at all. And so when you stop and go back and then come forward, you see, it's never in our lifetime about racism or prejudice or segregation. It's about white supremacy, and most white folk don't even understand that. I remember one time my mama said, I was 9 years old, yeah, the problem with America is these old ignorant, snuff dipping, nigger hating white boys can't read or write. I couldn't say too much for my mother because she's an ignorant person. When you try to tell them something, they'll jump on you if you're a child. So I say to my brother, she really believed that type of white person determined